I'm Catherine Caroli, and I'd like to talk about how to prepare the Carnival of the Animals excerpt for auditions. I think the thing that goes wrong with this excerpt for a lot of players is that people try to play it too fast and too loud. It's actually marked piano and at moderato. So I think a reasonable tempo for this is probably around 72 to a quarter note. You may be asked to play it faster, but at this tempo, I think it's really nice to play it. You can play it easily, cleanly, and lightly. So that would go something like this. So I think that 72 is a good overall tempo. In terms of practicing the technique, I would practice this a lot like Mendelssohn Scherzo, so you can watch my video about that, but basically just the typical, or the Tafanel Gobert actually, the video I did on technique. Basically you're woodshedding, you're doing a lot of uneven practice and movable fermata practice. What I find most important is the transition from one beat to the next. I think it's pretty easy to play the first 6 notes of the beat, but then it gets difficult to get to the next part. So I really like this version. And in fact, when I'm playing this excerpt, I'm really thinking about the offbeats, because I feel like it helps me just turn around into the next beat. As far as fingerings go, if you can play the correct fingerings and not use fake fingerings, with a couple of exceptions, that's ideal. Sometimes when I'm feeling worried that I'm going to crack the E, I might take my pinky off for the E. Of course, you can use this if it just really becomes too cumbersome. The places I would have exceptions, on the third beat, the D to E, I wouldn't try to put my pinky down. I would just leave my pinky up and then I'd still move my first finger. So, and then I would do definitely this fingering at 1, because it sounds pretty gross. And where else? Then the real fingering here too. And then on the top of the next page, at least in this edition, 1, 2, 3, 4 bars, or 3 bars before 4, when you get to the C and D going back and forth, I like to leave my ring finger on my right hand down. There it is. So that answers the issue of the alternate fingerings. I think if you're having issues tonguing down low, I definitely recommend you watch my low register tonguing video. And I think the same things should happen here, that you practice slurred first. I don't put my pinky down in that E, by the way. Making sure you have a really nice sound down low, and practicing under the slur with all your woodshedding techniques, and then going to legato tongue. And gradually speeding up the tempo, which will lighten up the articulation. Make sure you're playing the correct number of A's at figure 2, and then try not to attack your low notes 3 after 2. I hear players sometimes, and it just distorts the sound, doesn't sound very good. So I'm really thinking about, in the second bar of 2, about setting my embouchure for the low notes. And then making sure you have a really clean chromatic scale. And I like to do a diminuendo at the end of those chromatic scales. At figure 3, there should not be a slur. It's sometimes marked the first 2 notes slur. That's incorrect. Make sure you keep the tempo steady before 4. And that's a place where I would want to practice my low register articulation coming from a high note. I might even practice slurred first. And then I'm thinking up as I'm going down to the D flat. And of course I don't want to punch out the low D flat. I like to play the downbeat bar before 4 long, and also any of those accented 16th note downbeats here. Because they're not marked staccato, and there are very few things actually in this, very few long notes in this piece that aren't marked staccato. So I think it's nice to play those long with a diminuendo afterwards. And then super important that you have a huge diminuendo at the end of the very end of the excerpt. Sometimes I see dots with a slur written 3 before the end of the excerpt, but I think it's nice to be dolce, but I wouldn't be long. And then you really want to work on your last notes. And I'm letting a little air taper off to make sure that my final note actually speaks. So I hope that's helpful, and please let me know if you have questions or comments. CatherineCaroli@gmail.com. Thank you.